at the turn of the 20th century and as a modern artist. It is widely accepted now that well before painters like Vasily Kandinsky or Kazimir Malevich claimed to have invented abstraction, she had been painting in that mode for several years, first in small formats, and then on an enormous scale. When she began to paint this way, she was 44 years old. It was November 1906. "The experiments I have undertaken," she wrote as she set off on this new path, "will astound humanity." Any memory of these works faded after she died, and it took decades to bring them back to light. Why so long? The fact is that profound changes in the fine arts often meet with vehement rejection, and the resistance to Klint's reprisal was evident the first time her work was presented to a wide audience. In 1986, more than 40 years after her death, the Los Angeles County Museum of Art organized an exhibition titled The Spiritual in Art, Abstract Painting 1890 through 1985, which offered a new perspective on the history of non-representational art. In the catalog and exhibition, a relationship was suggested between abstraction and the various spiritual movements that spread through the Western world around the turn of the 20th century. It was a major show, and landmark works of abstraction were loaned by museums in Munich, Paris, Moscow, and New York. Klint's paintings came crashing into this venerable canon like a meteor. Suddenly, her huge canvases were hanging next to those of recognized modernist masters. The unknown Swedish woman seemed to come out of nowhere, and the reception was largely negative. The American critic, Hilton Kramer, wrote, "Hilma af Klint's paintings are essentially colored diagrams. To accord them a place of honor alongside the work of Kandinsky, Mondrian, Malevich, and Kupka is absurd. Af Klint is simply not an artist in their class and, dare one say it, would never have been given this inflated treatment if she had not been a woman." Kramer wasn't the only person who thought so. Silence fell again on the subject of Hilma af Klint. It took 2 more decades before the Moderna Museum in Stockholm mounted a large-scale offensive meant to secure a place for Hilma af Klint in the modernist canon. In 2013, the institution sponsored Pioneer of Abstraction, the largest exhibition of her work to that point, and sent the show on a tour through Europe. Excitement began to gather around the artist, and yet again the paintings met with resistance. The objections were phrased more carefully this time, but they came from prominent quarters. Curator Leah Dickerman of the Museum of Modern Art in New York wrote, "Af Klint painted in isolation and did not exhibit her works, nor did she participate in public discussions of that time. I find what she did absolutely fascinating, but I'm not even sure she saw her paintings as artworks." It took a third try for the story to take a new turn. The 2018 show at the Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum in New York, Hilma af Klint, Paintings for the Future, broke all attendance records, attracting more than 600,000 visitors, more than any exhibition since the museum's founding. The catalog became a bestseller. The New York Times ran a piece called "Hilma Who? No More." Since October 2019, the Guggenheim has continued to show several of her paintings. The art history outsider has become a star. It is possible that af Klint would have remained a footnote to the history of modern art, at least a while longer if the Guggenheim had not devoted their entire building to the show, thereby creating a blockbuster, or if the Axel and Margaret Axon Johnson Foundation had not advocated tirelessly for the academic reappraisal of the artist's work, organizing scholarly conferences to accompany exhibitions. It would have pleased the artist to know how excited visitors were to view her work at the Guggenheim, sometimes waiting for hours in a long line circling the block to gain admission. They shared and circulated her extraordinary images across countless networks.